Hello, everyone. A very good evening. Thanks for joining us today. I am Jhumpa Mukherjee, Brand and Media Manager at Minimac Systems. Today, we are here to discuss the best lubrication practices for compressors. As you all may know, compressors require special attention, and lubrication plays a vital role in the smooth functioning of compressors. So today, our experts will cover many important points and uh, the flow of the webinar will be presentation by our experts followed by a Q&A session. Today we have with us Mr. Anshuman Agrawal, founder and managing director of Minimac Systems, and Mr. Yogesh Kumar, head of technical services department of Minimac Systems. Before we start, I would like to remind you all to drop your questions in Q&A box, not in the chat box. Let's begin today's session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Jhumpa, for inviting us for this presentation today. Thank you so much, Mr. Yogesh, for joining me back on the platform of the special webinar on lubrication practices. So, of course, compressor lubrication is a very important topic for any plant. The plant may be a refinery or oil and gas establishment, or it can be a fertilizer plant. So everywhere around us, we do understand that lubrication plays a very important role. So first of all, before we start this presentation, let us understand that lubrication in case of compressors, it's a little ignored topic. The reason is multiple reasons are there. There might be a reason that people are ignoring the amount of oil which is present in the compressor, the amount of lubricating oil. I mean, the reason can be compressor might not be a very important or major equipment or installation of their entire plant. So that's why we have found out in many industries, compressor lubrication becomes a point where people are not so caring. There's also a reason that the amount of oil as it is very low, the investment that one has to make towards the change of lubrication, that's also very less. So that's the reason why at certain instances, maintenance practitioners, they avoid understanding the importance of compressor lubrication. But we during our field studies, we during our various assessment programs of multiple sectors and industries, we found that a major expenditure of the maintenance planned budget certainly goes into compressor lubrication. And that's the reason why we came up with this topic of best lubrication practices for compressors for all of you today. So before we get into the topic of lubrication, let us understand how compressed gas has played a role in all of us life since our childhood days. So we have all played with these balloons which have got compressed air in them. We have been traveling in tuk-tuk or auto rickshaw in our various cities and metros, which do work on CNG. Then we have also used these vacuum devices for cleaning our floors. Now, this is a very special picture I can remember from my childhood as well, wherein trying to inflate the tire of my bicycle with a hand pump. Then we have all used certain devices for aerosol applications. The liquid petroleum gas, LPG, that is used in the kitchens of almost all the households, especially in countries like African countries and India and Middle East, also Asia Pacific to a certain extent. Then you have air cons, and these air cons certainly use a compressor in them. And of course, to relax, we use soda bottles. So there again, compressed air plays a major role. So compressed air production, it happens by an equipment called the compressor. So the compressor works on certain principle. Now here's a poll question for us. So the poll question says, which law of physics or physical science is applicable to the working principle of the compressor? So is it the Boyle's law or the Charles law or compression law or all of the above? So probably you'll all have to recall your basic physics and give the answer of this poll. Even if it is wrong, doesn't matter, because it's a very secretive poll. No one's going to know who has responded how. So you can please go ahead and give your opinion. Another few seconds before we end the poll. Okay, so we have the results out here, and the results are quite interesting. It's a mixed reaction by the audience. So around 24% say it's the Boyle's law. Yes, you are correct. 12% say it's the Charles law. Even you are correct. 20% say it's the compression law. Yes, brothers and sisters, even you are correct. So basically it's 44% all of the above. And that's what is applicable for any compressor. It's all the principles do apply when it comes to compressor operation. Now here we see an animation where we can easily see when a certain mass is applied onto a gas, so that will apply certain pressure. So as the pressure increases, the volume occupied by that gas or fluid reduces. Now here we must understand that the temperature was kept constant. So this is a depiction of one of the laws, that is the Boyle's law, where the mass and temperature have been kept constant, and we are trying to analyze how the volume will change when the pressure increases. So we can see in the graph, the volume reduces while the pressure increases. So this is a study which was done under special test conditions. However, in actual reality and the practical applications of compressors, the temperature doesn't remain constant, because when you apply pressure, there would be increase of temperature of the working media or the in-service fluid. So the temperature won't remain constant and it would keep increasing. So that's the reason we have mentioned that all the laws mentioned in the slide before, they are applicable for the compressors. And just because of this reason that the temperature increases, it becomes very important for us to know how the application of lubrication is very critical when you talk about compressor lubrication. So before we get into the topic of compressor lubrication, we need to understand what types of compressors are present in our industries. So broadly, the compressors are of two types. One is positive displacement compressors. So this entire slide, which you can see in front of you, is all positive displacement compressors. The next slide, I would be talking about the dynamic compressors. So first, let us understand under positive displacement compressors, there are two broad classifications. Now, these have been done and carried out based on the construction and the principle of operation of the compressors. So these are basic mere classifications based on construction and operation. Why we do the classifications? So that we can understand what compressor can be used in what application, how the compressor can be maintained, what are the challenges in maintaining the compressors. So that's the reason we need to know the classification at first. So starting with the first type of positive displacement compressors, they are rotary compressor systems. By rotary, we can understand that there would be a shaft and there would be certain component which would be in rotation. So by the virtue of rotation, there would be certain pressure created onto the in-service fluid or in-service air. So while the rotation is happening, there would be certain lobes, or there would be certain screw arrangement, or there might be a scroll arrangement or certain vanes arrangement. So based on the construction, based on the component inside the compressor, the names of compressor have been given as rotary lobe compressor, or the screw compressor, the scroll compressor, and the vane compressor. Starting with the rotary lobe compressors, these are compressors which are very noisy. You can relate it with the pumps. If you are experts in pump, you would understand there are gear pumps. Again, they are very noisy. So similarly, the rotary lube pumps, rotary lube compressors, they are highly noisy in nature. So if you are going to decide for a compressor, you must understand that you use this rotary lube compressors, lobe compressors, where noise is not a concern. The second type is the screw compressors. So these screw compressors are highly economical compressors, and these are used for applications like instrument air and service air related compression applications. So here you can see there are certain screws which are getting meshed to each other. As compared to the lobe compressors, the noise levels are lower. Even a little higher volumes can be handled with these screw compressors. And that's the reason why they are used for instrument air applications and service air applications. So you can find them in your power plants where you have a compressor house, or even in your steel plants or cement plants. So as a part of your instrument air project, the screw compressors would be a major installation in the compressor house. The next type is the scroll compressor. These are the least noisy, or you can say they are silent compressors. And these are normally used where lesser volumes of fluid is to be compressed. So for higher volumes, scroll compressors are generally not preferred. The vane compressors are those which are oil free. So these are the areas where probably lubrication challenges won't ever exist. So that's a good thing, but their wear rate is very high. And that's why periodic maintenance of the mechanical system, the rotary parts, becomes also very important. As the wear rate is high, so the vane depletion is a possibility. You might land up changing the vanes very regularly. But again, there are certain applications where vane compressors are much preferred, possibly where the pressure ratings are high. The next set of compressors under the positive displacement compressors is the reciprocating compressor system. And these you can understand are where there is a reciprocation movement into the chamber where the fluid has to be compressed. These are diaphragm type or piston type. Piston type is further classified into double acting pistons and single acting pistons. So the diaphragm type reciprocating compressors are those which you can actually use for, say, not in contact with the air, where the lubrication system does not get in touch with the air which has to be compressed. So the chances of cross contamination from the air in service into the lubrication system is the least. The next type is the piston type. So if you have handled engines, you can easily understand that these compressors work on similar principle, and hence they are double acting as well as single acting compressors. Taking no further time on explanation of type of compressors, let us go to the dynamic compressors. So the dynamic compressors are also known as centrifugal compressors in layman terms. Otherwise, there is also another type called axial compressor, which is also under the category of dynamic compressor. So if you can see the pictures given here, the centrifugal compressors are those where you have impellers. There is a volute through which the compressed air exits the compressor. In the axial compressor, there is a axial end through which the compressed air exits the compressor. Normally, the centrifugal compressors are used where very high volumes of fluid have to be compressed, and very high flow is the output of such centrifugal compressors. Here, in both the centrifugal and axial compressors, the lubrication system is totally separate, and there is no possibility that the lubrication oil will come in touch or contact with the compressed air system. So here the chances of cross contamination from the air chamber or compressed air chamber to the lubrication system is the least. Again, for axial compressor, if you want to understand the functioning, and if you have worked with turbines, so this is a complete opposite of a turbine. So here the compressed air, the air which has to be compressed, it enters the chamber where you have blades in the axial arrangement, and there is a successive compression which happens. So again, these compressors are used where high flow is required and also higher level of compression pressures are possible. So this is all about the types of compressors. I'm hoping it's all clear to the audience. Next, we would move to the lubrication function in all these types of compressors. So in broad category, we have seen there are rotary, reciprocating, and dynamic compressors. So in all of these, there is a different lubrication application. So the first one is rotary compressor. The challenges of lubrication in rotary compressors are very extreme. The reason behind it is the lubricant oil, which is filled up in the compressors for lubricating the bearings. The same lubricant oil also serves as the working fluid. By working fluid, what I mean to say is the screw or the lobe or the scroller, they all are immersed in the lubricant, and the lubricant is actually serving as a working media between the screws, between the lobes. The air enters into the scroller or the screw or the lobe, and it gets compressed along with the lubricating oil. So here we are actually providing a platform for the lubricating oil to get mixed up with the service air or the gas which we have to compress. So you can just imagine that it's a scenario where we are allowing the lubricating oil to get in contact with a different fluid altogether. And that different fluid might be a hazardous gas. It can be a polluted air, or it can be any other foreign material filled fluid, which can actually harm our lubricating oil. And this is what happens. So the case of cross contamination is highly prominent, or I must say it's a mandatory thing to happen. So here the entire dust contamination or some other solid particulate contamination, many times some kind of solid hydrocarbon contamination that enters through the screw arrangement or through the lobe arrangement into the lubricating oil. Of course, as a standard design of these compressors, it is evident to happen. And hence, there is a separator on the downstream of the compressor where the lubricating oil is separated from the compressed gas. But do we have something to separate the solid particles, any other liquid contaminations from the fluid, that is the lubricating fluid? Probably it won't be that sufficient. And hence, the lubrication related problems and lubrication related application concerns are considered to be highest in case of all the rotary compressors. In case of reciprocating compressors, there are piston rings which do separate the lubricating oil from the entrant gases. But there is a possibility of leakages. Whenever these piston rings get certain wear and tear, there is a possibility that the compression chamber gases would come down into the lubricating chamber. And this is a normal practice which does happen. In case of dynamic compressors, that is the centrifugal compressor and the axial compressor, no such chance of cross contamination is there. But they have heavy bearings, similar to what we have in turbines and large size gearboxes. And these bearings do have a lot of wear and tear in them. So the practices what we adopt for the bearing lubrication of a turbine, those have to be adopted for our dynamic compression compressors also. So in all, we have understood that lubrication is a major concern for all the compressor users, and hence we must understand what type of lubrication related activities we must have in our maintenance schedules. Regarding a special type of compressor, that is the refrigeration compressor, here the certain properties of lubricant which are very vital have been listed down. The reason for it is, as these lubricants are going to get mixed up, because you would be using a screw compressor in this case. So as the lubricants would get mixed up with the refrigerant gas, R134A, there are possibilities that these lubricants will not serve the purpose. And hence the compatibility with the refrigerant is very important for such lubricants. Another point is, as these refrigerant compressors are subjected to a very low temperature, so there a requirement for low pour point for the lubricant is very important. There are other properties like high VI or viscosity index, because there is a very large temperature variation which is going to happen because you are working from a very low temperature of the gas into a very high temperature possibility. And that's why the VI has to be high so that the viscosity of the lubricant does not vary much during the service in the refrigeration type compressor. There is a typical circuit for forced lubrication in case of a compressor. The circuit what we have adopted here is a dynamic type compressor, possibly a axial or the centrifugal compressor, where the lubrication tank is totally separate. So there is a video animation wherein you can see that the oil is taken in suction from the oil pumps. It goes into oil coolers. From there, it goes to certain duplex filter arrangements, then to the different bearings, and the return from the bearings comes back to the tanks. Now here we must note that the OEMs of these compressors, they do give us certain duplex filter arrangements for doing the particulate separation from the circulating oil. But is that sufficient enough? Is that sufficient to remove the gaseous contamination? Does that solve the problem of foaming in compressor oil? Does that remove the water contamination which might have come along with the wet gas or the wet air? Does that remove the fine particles? Like in case of refineries, I've heard there are certain compressors which have teal, TEAL, teal as one of the major contaminants in the ammonia compression activity. So does this duplex oil filter given by the OEM suffice all our needs? Possibly no, because this is a very high micron rating filter element. By high micron, I don't mean a very high efficiency. By high micron, I mean a coarse filter. So possibly it will be a 25 micron filter element. So will that remove the fine particles? And certainly it won't handle the liquid contamination or the gaseous contamination or the fine sludgy contaminations. And hence, always there is a need for either an oil change in case of compressors or a better purification for the compressor oils. Moving to compressor oil properties, there are certain standard set of properties which any lubricant company would like to offer, like the high oxidation stability, because this oil would be subjected to water contamination, certain gaseous contaminations. There would be acid content coming in. So oxidation stability should be high. They should have good demulsibility, because if there is a wet gas application and the free water enters into the lubrication system, if that is not demulsified, means it does not settle down, then there would be possibly an emulsion of lubricant which would be formed, and further it would be extremely difficult to remove. So good demulsibility is important. Excellent wear protection, that's certainly common for a lot of lubricants. Good compatibility with seals, because if you are changing your lubricant, of course you won't go and change the seals for your entire compressor system. So why this has been mentioned? Because many compressor oils are synthetic in nature, and synthetic compressor oils sometimes do come with corrosive properties, and they have special requirements for seals. Like there are certain fluids or synthetic compressor oils which require seals of Viton material. So if you are going to change your lubricant from a standard mineral oil version into a synthetic oil version, would you like to change the entire seal system of your compressor? Probably not. And hence the good compatibility with the seals is very important here. Easy filterability, because we already know that particles are going to come and you can't avoid them, because in compressors, as we learned, as per the design, as per the in-service application of compressors, contamination is quite prone and we can't avoid it. Just like we have avoided in our other systems like gearboxes and turbines and pumps, possibly in case of compressors, we won't be able to avoid the contamination. So if we are not able to avoid it, it should have a property that the lubricant can be filtered easily. And that's why the property easy filterability. In the chart on the right hand side, I won't go into depth in all the properties, but there are two properties which are very different from other oils. That's the pour point and the flash point. The pour point in case of compressor oils is generally lower, means it is in the range sub-zero, and the flash point is generally higher. It's mostly more than 200. The reason is the in-service temperature variation. While these lubricants are used in compressors, the temperature variation is extremely high as compared to other applications of lubricants. And that's the reason why the pour point and flash point range is quite large and broader. So there's time for next poll question. I would like to know from the audience, do you keep a barrel pump for the compressor oil? So there's the poll option for you guys. Probably you would be handling a lot of lubricants in your plant. So do you actually keep a barrel pump specially for the compressor oil? Or do you use the same barrel pump which you have been using for all the other lubricants? So kindly be honest in your responses. So we would like to know what is the current trend in the industry? What are the current practices? So you are people who have been using compressor oils very widely, and it's important for us to know how it has been handled. Another few seconds before we end the poll and get the responses. Okay, so yeah, we have a very aware audience where 62% say they do use a barrel pump separately, dedicatedly for the compressor oil. That's really very good thing. And for people who have responded with a no, not sure answer, I would recommend you should find out from your teams whether they use a separate barrel pump or not. And for people, 29%, if you have answered as no, I must say that we will see in the subsequent slides why handling the compressor oil in a dedicated manner is so important for us. So here we have identified certain lubricant practices at various plants. Some of the live pictures is what we have used. So the first picture is a poorly maintained lube room. Lube room concept is very important because in a lube room, you can actually demarcate what are the lubricants you are using. You can keep them in a proper storage facility. You can separate them out. So as you have a very special lubricant that is for use for compressor, you can mark it as a separate lube so that it isn't used by some other application. Then the second one is the lack of contamination control. So it has been seen at certain cement plants where the entire dust zone has covered the lubrication tank, and that lone breather element is unable to do any work out there because it's already choked probably. Then there are inadequate handling devices and arrangement devices. So because of that, people use whatever is present with them. So these practices must certainly be avoided. Now, what these practices do if we are not handling the lubricant in a proper function and manner. So this particular webinar series of webinar from Minimac Systems, we have been reiterating the same thing again and again because we want the entire industrial practice to change. So if the handling and storage of lubricant uh, from its current status quo, it changes by a delta of 10%, I think the purpose of this webinar would be solved. So here we need to understand that certain wrong practices or unprofessional practices, if they are used in your plant, then there are chances of oil dilution. And oil dilution is a very dangerous scenario. Just today, I got a phone call from one of the plants. It's not related to compressor oil, but it's related to another synthetic fluid. The cost of the synthetic fluid is somewhere in the range of 2000 Indian rupees, which would convert to somewhere around, I can say, $30 per liter basis. Now, that amount of lubricant, cost of lubricant, if it gets mixed up with a lubricant which is worth just $1 per liter, the entire asset which you have gets wasted. So this call which I got today, it was from a power plant where probably the wrong practices, they mixed up the lube oil, the turbine lube oil, with the synthetic fire resistant fluid. This changed the entire chemistry of that synthetic fluid. It changed the color, first of all. Anyway, the color doesn't matter much, but it changed the viscosity. It has got a lot of changes in the chemical properties of that oil. The tan value has increased. Moisture is uncontrollable. The demulsibility factor has gone down. So a lot of chemistry changes if there is oil dilution which is happening. When there is sludge formation happens mostly because of the acid contaminations coming into your oil and oil getting oxidized. So these sludge will get deposited onto the various important components of your equipment, in our case, the compressor. Varnish you would find in the shaft bearings. Varnish you would find also in the tank surfaces. Then you would have a very frequent filter clogging condition. Filter, it can be an air breather filter. It can be the oil filter, which the OEM has provided. It can be any other filter you might have adopted at the site. So filter clogging becomes quite prominent. So if we can prevent addition of contamination into our lubrication system, probably we would arrest a lot of such problems happening in the system later on. So in order to carry out, you must plan for a proper assessment for the entire lubrication practice in your plant. Also, we strongly recommend the usage of external purification machines whenever it comes the case of large size compressors. So we have been visiting a lot of refineries and oil and gas platforms and oil and gas processing stations where large sized compressors are there. And the problems of these compressors are also very different. So in those cases, we have identified that the foreign particles entering into the lubrication system is very high. And in such cases, if you go for intermittent application of an external purifier system, by intermittent, I say is you go for a filtration or purification using a service contract and then you remove it. So that's actually solving the purpose partially, possibly only for those days while that service provider provided you that service. But once you have removed that service provider from service, again, the same situation will happen. So here I want to stress upon one fact, that if the compressor is important and critical for your plant, if a shutdown can't be tolerated, and if you can't compromise on any breakdown of the compressor, then you must go for external purification for the compressor oil. At a lot of plants, people have been changing the lubricant. Now, change of lubricant, first of all, is highly costly for your plant. You might be calculating the cost of your production loss, and with that, you might be justifying the cost of lubricant exchange or lubricant change. But that's not the way how it should be, because lubricants are very highly depleting resource in our earth. So as a matter of fact, if you want to maintain the eco viability of this entire globe, you must save the lubricants. So change of lubricants is a very regular practice in case of compressors, but that can be avoided if you can involve external purifiers for your compressor system. So with this, I would hand over the stage to my colleague, Mr. Yogesh Kumar, who has compiled certain interesting case studies from the industries where he has worked, and during his last 12-15 years of experience of various rotary equipment, these case studies have come up from multiple sectors and industries. So over to you, Mr. Yogesh.
Thank you, Anshumanji. Thanks a lot. Hello, friends. Very good evening. Right now, I am at a very remote area of Odisha, so maybe some communication issue due to poor network. My serious apology for that. And as Anshumanji explained, the concept of compressor and application of oil, that was quite in depth and very insightfully we got the things. Now we will see few case studies, and after that we will see the maintenance practices or daily checks by which we can improve compressor reliability, or we can reduce the downtime. So out of various cases, just we have mentioned here 3-4 cases. First one is from a refinery. We use their wet gas compressors, and in this compressor, to improve the efficiency of a compressor, we use water sprinkling, so that compression ratio will be very high and efficiency of compressor will go up. So when we compress the air, certainly air has to pass through a rotating component and it has to come out from compressor outlet. But the rotating component is a dynamic component and the casing of compressor is a static component. So there must be a fine clearance between the static and rotating part. And behind the fine clearances, we have bearings and lubrication system. So whenever gas is compressed, whatever precaution we take, small quantity of air or gas, whatever the media we are using, it will enter into lubrication chamber. And the case of refinery is very typical because surrounding atmospheric air is not just the ambient air what we see at our home. Lot of hydrocarbons are available in that air. So refinery handles oil, so the volatile hydrocarbon has a greater percentage in the air, and the lubricating oil is also made of hydrocarbon. So we are mixing one type of hydrocarbon with another undesirable type of hydrocarbon. This is typical case of cross contamination. So when we see that at the suction side we have filter, or the gas which we are going to compress is very clean, so it will not add any contamination to the lubricant. Very fine, it will not add any solid contamination, agreed. but it will add some chemical contamination and moisture to the lubricant. So what was happening? Seal and gland of the compressor was failing frequently. Then we were facing the issue of axial vibration. Axial vibration means shaft was just trying to move forward or backward during operation. And one special type, that was suction knockout. This suction knockout is a very common case, and those who are working with compressor will be knowing it. And sometimes it leads to stalling of compressor, or maybe back circulation of the working media. So when we did the in-depth analysis of the oil, we found that viscosity of the oil was coming down even after few days of oil replacement. Then how it was coming down after the elemental analysis, and when we checked the oil with gas chromatographer, then we found that apart from the base oil and additives, we found n number of different hydrocarbon or chemicals present in the oil. Later on, we concluded how it's happening, and we did nothing, just we changed the seal type, because that oil was eating away the seal. Seal used to touch the rotating component to avoid any crossing of gas to the lubricating chamber. So those seals were getting damaged, and after that, lubricating oil was getting contaminated. We will see one more case. The next case is from a power plant. This power plant was a large capacity of 600 megawatt, and I was working in this plant that time, and I was looking after maintenance of this compressor as well. It was in my division only. So this compressor was used to supply the instrument air to operate various pneumatic valves in the air handling system and as well as the main plant BTG. So suddenly one compressor tripped on the high air end temperature, and the standby compressor was out of order. It was under preventive maintenance because compressor were asking a lot of maintenance at that time. After analysis of the things, we were able to stabilize the operation. It took some time, but at time of this incident, so fortunately we saved the unit because we diverted service air to the instrument air line. So outage of one compressor can lead to shutdown of entire unit because no pneumatic valve is going to work, or when pneumatic valves are not working, then entire the control system goes out of hand. We cannot convey the ash. They will settle in the ash pipeline. It may take days or weeks to remove all the jammed ash lines. Then again, the control valve will not function properly. So temperature may go very high or very low for the cooling systems. Then we cannot control the speed of turbine. So there are several issues which may come because of compressor failure, especially in the case of instrument air compressor. We should be very, very conscious because any oil carryover will harm the servo valves which are used to supply air to the pneumatic valves. They are fitted on the body of pneumatic valves. And when we are using compressor and oil as a working fluid, then oil separator sometimes cannot remove 100% of the oil. And practically it is very difficult. So carryover oil will enter into pneumatic control valves or servo valves. And why oil separator will not work 100% efficiently? Because the contamination will stuck over the oil separating surface, and those will hamper the function of air oil separator or gas oil separator. So unintentionally, the added contamination is going to damage the compressor as well as the system related to the compressed gas or compressed air. We will see one more case. The next case is of a aluminum plant, and this is a plant of a very big group. We can say it is India's highest aluminum producer company, and where compressor maintenance was very frequent. Even it was not breakdown, but just to reduce the MTBF or MTTR, what we calculate, like mean time between failure and mean time to repair. When they analyzed it, then they found that we should increase the preventive maintenance frequency of the compressor. That's quite fine. But when we do over maintenance, if we increase the frequency of preventive maintenance, cost of maintenance will go high. We may exceed our maintenance budget. Then disturbing a system frequently will lead to premature failure of the entire system. After analysis, we found that 80% of the failure reason was due to oil contamination. Then after analysis again, we found that the oil selection was not proper for that particular application. Yes, the same compressor would have worked fantastic in a different industry. But when we come to aluminum industry, then the atmospheric air where fume concentration is very, very high. At that time, the air sucked into compressor has fumes, and those fumes having certain chemical property, those were damaging the mineral oil fastly, or they were deteriorating the oil property. There, after recommendation, we switched to mineral oil after assessment of related component like seals and other internals, that compatibility is there or not. Then we changed the oil, and initially maintenance frequency was less than a month. And when we changed just the oil, the compressor run for year without failure 24/7. We used to change the oil as per recommended hour. There also we did some experiment. Directly we cannot recommend you to do the same. Like oil changing frequency was 5,000 running hour. What we did, we removed the oil after 2,500 of running hour. We filtered it or we reconditioned it. And the reconditioned oil, we filled back to the compressor. And we found that our oil changing frequency went up to 8,000 running hour, and there was no harm on the compressor component. Like suppose 5,000 hour oil got contaminated, we need to replace. Okay, fine. When the compressor was running at 4,999th hour, it was full of contamination, because after 1 hour we are going to replace the oil. So 1 hour before it was running with full contamination. So internals were getting damaged. May not be 100%, but 98%, 97%, at any number we can choose, it will get damaged. So if we filter the oil in half of the service life, then we can extend the service life of the oil. So we did it practically, and it was very successful. Definitely it needs lots of calculation before go for such experiment or such decision before we take. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, so now we would like to know that in our daily activities, uh, which type of issue is coming to compressor normally? Maybe high bearing oil temperature or low discharge pressure, or water in lube oil or low lube oil pressure. So uh, please vote. Uh, we would like to know, and your voting is great input for us, and it is like food for us to think in that particular area more. So yes, very nice. High pulling is going on. You can see here. Okay. Yeah, so we have a high bearing oil temperature issue at the top, that is 43%. Then low discharge pressure 17%. Water in lube oil is also quite high, 26%. And low lube oil pressure is 13%. Okay. So we will see how high bearing oil temperature is happening, and then how water is entering into the lube oil. So we will address these two top issues. Uh, we will also look into troubleshooting of compressor. So just I will take 1 minute to explain the issues regarding high bearing oil temperature and water. So when we compress the gas, temperature will certainly go high, and that high temperature will heat the compressor shaft, and that shaft is directly linked with the bearing, or bearing is mounted over the shaft. So lube oil has a role to extract all the heat near to the bearing area and carry it out to the reservoir, and further it gets cooled in the oil cooler. So when bearing oil temperature is going high, it shows that apart from the shaft temperature, any mean is there by which hot air is entering into lubrication chamber. The same is with high moisture in the oil or high water level in the oil. But when we compress the air, then tendency for the dew formation or condensation of the humidity will increase. Like we can see in our LPG cylinder, compressed gas is in the form of liquid. So when we compress the air, water tries to separate from the air and form dew or small droplet of water. And when compressed air is in contact with lubricating oil or working fluid, then oil has tendency to get saturated. So till the time it will not reach its saturation level, it will keep on adding water into it. So these two reasons are contributing mainly for high bearing oil temperature and high water in the oil. So now coming to troubleshooting of compressor. First one we can see, that is we see low lube oil pressure. This is very common when filters are not monitored properly, or differential pressure switch or gauge is malfunctioning and we are not changing filter at right time. Then since oil has tendency to carry over with air, so tank level will have a tendency always to come down. We should monitor the tank oil level in every shift or at least once in a day. Main oil pump running at low speed or main oil pump fails. This is a typical case we have seen at certain places, and what reason we found that the pump was running with high temperature oil. Relief oil improperly set or stuck open. This is directly related to contamination, because relief valve of a compressor lubrication system has very small seating area and very small ball, maybe having diameter of 4 mm or less than that. So any small micronic particle, maybe 15 micron or 20 micron particle, has a tendency to lift the ball from the seat, and then function of relief valve will go off. Water in lube oil we have just discussed. High bearing oil temperature also we have seen. One point we didn't discuss in high bearing oil temperature, high lube oil viscosity. Sometimes it is general tendency that our compressor is running at a high temperature, so why not we go for the higher viscosity oil? So even at the higher temperature, oil will maintain its viscosity. Increasing the viscosity just to get relief from thinning of oil film is just that we have fever and we jump into a swimming pool to cool down our body. That is not the solution. Restricted oil flow of the bearing is related to the orifice choking, and in the background we have same contamination issue, because dust or any solid contamination mixed with the oil has sticky nature. So they try to choke the fine orifices. We will see some more troubleshooting point. One is low discharge pressure. Discharge pressure of compressor, when we talk, then we know that pressure is proportional to cube of RPM, P proportional to NQ, we call. So any small changes in the compressor speed will have greater impact on the discharge pressure. Then excessive suction temperature. Suction filter of compressor are normally ignored, and we have seen practically that people used to take out the suction compressor, blow it with compressed air and reuse the filter. Suction filter we should never reuse. It is one time usable. When DP is high, replace the filter. Please, we request, don't do air blowing or clean the compressor manually and fix it back till it is not recommended by the OEM. Leak in discharge a pipeline is common maintenance issue, and it is not typically related with compressor only. Then compressor surge. Surging of compressor is nightmare. We have very fine clearances between screw or vane or compressor blade, fin, and the casing. So when air recirculates within the compressor, then we have tendency of compressor surge or compressor stall. This may be due to inlet filter choking, or there is sudden change in the system resistance, means change in the outlet of the compressor, or in case where we have high humid atmosphere, we find deposits on the compressor rotor, and those deposits changes the aerodynamics of the blade, and the air we should move forward moves radially, and the radial movement of air will lead to surging of compressor. In excessive vibration, this vibration may be because of your lubricating film failure or misalignment, or sometimes, not typically, it is due to high bearing temperatures. And high bearing temperature we have discussed. This is very common phenomena in the compressor, but very easily controllable phenomena. And high bearing temperature will not lead only to the vibration. It increases the clearances between inner race ball and outer race. So when in the case of compressor, we normally use C1 type or C2 type of bearing, having very tight clearances. We don't recommend C3 type. So when we are talking about C1 compressor and we are increasing the bearing temperature, then suddenly we will lead to high vibration of the system. We will see a few more points. These are normal checkpoint which we maintain normally. Just for a quick revision, we mentioned it that air filter, oil filter, lubricant, separator element, motor bearing, belts if it is belt driven condenser, compressor, and intake vent. How frequently we should check them, and what should our actionable after checking? Suppose we went and checked the lubricant level, then what should be the next? It should predefined. If lubrication level is at normal level, shall we go to above normal, or we have to wait for the low or low level? That should be predefined. So with every checkpoint, we should have a written document, and it should be common to all field operators or inspection engineer. So everyone will have same platform to check and to take decisions. These are properties of oil and some tests recommended. So we can make this table for our particular application. Suppose you are using Fushank compressor or Ingersoll Rand, then they have recommended certain type of oil. So for that oil, we can define what is the normal, what is the caution limit, and what is the critical limit. That cannot be same for the every type of oil. So for typical application, we should make it, and we should follow these standard. Some test can be done on site, or some maybe some we have to send to some external lab if we don't have that much facility. So we can make a checklist of all the tests and their frequency to certify that whatever practice we are maintaining is a standard practice, and we are not going to put our equipment in danger. Next slide. Yeah, this may be our last slide for the day. And this is again inspection checklist. We can take a printout of it checklist, and every operator has to take a walk down survey or round of the site, and they have to tick all these by physically verifying the things, because we cannot believe always on the values coming on our DCS or SCADA. Sometimes we have to visit in the field to see the actual condition. We can hear the noise, we can feel the vibration or any change in sound of compressor, we can feel the heat. So by using these checklists, we can assure that our compressor is running happily, and we will not end up with a breakdown. Thank you so much for your patient listening, and handing Over to Ms. Jhumpa.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And that was a great presentation by our experts. And let's move on to Q&A session. And already we have many questions waiting in the Q&A box and many positive comments in the chat box. On behalf of Minimac and the team webinar, I would like to thank you all for such support and appreciating our webinar series. Before we move on, I would like to announce our next webinar, which will be on 18th October 2021, Monday. Oil condition monitoring is the topic. You can register for this webinar by using the registration link in the chat box. You can register for it right away, and you can get in touch with us and write to us at info@minimac.in and visit our website minimacsystems.com and subscribe our blogs for latest updates and case studies, informative articles, and so on. And you can also follow us on all social media channels. So let's begin with the Q&A session. I would request our experts to please switch on their cameras and unmute themselves. Okay, so the first question we have from Arnab Adhikari is why oil flushing is required?
So I'll take this question. Arnab, this is a very good question in the sense that we had not covered it in the presentation, but I'm glad that you raised this point. Flushing is certainly an important activity which is related to the compressors, especially when you have lubricating oil. When do you perform flushing? So as a part of pre-commissioning activity of any compressor, flushing is a mandatory activity. And unless you perform flushing for the lubricating lines, for the various components, for the entire lubrication system, the OEM of the compressor would not allow you to start up the compressor. So first of all, during the pre-commissioning activity. Second, whenever you perform any oil changes with a different grade of oil or lubricant, or maybe if you have performed certain breakdown activity on the compressor and you would like to restart the compressor, you must understand that a lot of contamination might enter the pipelines or the fittings or various loops. So at those junctures of maintenance and breakdown activities, also flushing activity is mandatory.
Okay. So the next question is from Mohammad Surif Abdul Wahab. For a reciprocating compressor, the oil at the compression and cylinder sometimes use two different oils. Is it possible to use only one type of oil?
I would like to take this question. Yes, certainly we can use same type of oil, but first of all, we need to see what was the reason to recommend two different oil, and by analysis of the system, we can conclude that can we go for the same type of oil or not. In few cases, we did it in the past, and it is working very fine. So we need to analyze your system deeply first.
Okay. So the next question is from Pierre Mohammed Qasim. What are the recommended running hours after which we need to change the oil in the screw compressors and heavy load helical gearboxes?
The recommended running hours is normally given by the OEMs who have prescribed the entire lubrication schedule and maintenance activity. But apart from the change of lubricant, as Mr. Yogesh had explained, if the running hour is, for example, 5,000 hours, do we really believe that the lubricant has worked up to the best of its properties and application till the running hours? Because maybe if the life of lubricant is 5,000 hours, probably at 2,500 hours, the lubricant is not as new as it was filled in. So in those circumstances, external purification of the lubricant is very highly recommended. And even if you are changing your lubricant as per the OEM's recommendation of ours, you must adopt purification systems externally for the lubricant oil.
Okay. So the next question is from Mr. Suresh, how to control NAS best machine filtering?
For NAS, which is actually a standard for measurement of solid particle contamination, so NAS 1638 is the standard number. Also, there is an alternate method known as ISO 4406, which is more prominently used in case of compressors. So either it is NAS 1638 or ISO 4406. In both these cases, you need to adopt a micron filtration system or mechanical filtration system for the maintenance of your compressor. Why I talk about mechanical filtration systems is because your compressor oil might have certain additives which are not compatible to the electrostatic type of purification activity. So if you want to achieve NAS levels and ISO 4406 levels, the best way and the safest way to do it would be mechanical filtration systems.
Okay, great. So the next question is from John Robert. We have a set of lobe compressors. The service fluid handled in lobe compressor is cold nitrogen. Is there any possibility of oil carryover into the nitrogen gas? We have installed lobe compressor for vacuum service. Kindly give your opinion.
Yeah, so as we discussed during the presentation, in case of lobe compressors or screw compressors, these are all where the service fluid and the working fluid, both of them get mixed up inside the compression chamber. So it is highly probable that the working fluid, which is the lubricant, it would get attached or stuck to the molecules of the service fluid, which is your air, in your case, cold nitrogen. So there is a separator, oil air separator, which is placed on the downstream of all these compressors. Now, the efficiency of that particular separator depends and actually decides on how your service fluid will be made free from any contamination of the working fluid.
Okay. So the next question is from Prashant Kumar. We have an axial compressor coupled with blast furnace gas turbine. We are planning to commission the gas turbine, but it was installed 5 years ago and not commissioned yet. Some seniors suggested to run the turbine with nitrogen gas. What are your recommendations?
Very good question. Yes, we can do nitrogen flushing of compressor or gas turbine, but before that we need to inspect the internals, whether it is rusted or there is oxidation of the internal components or some layer formation is there. So before going for nitrogen flushing, we recommend to go for internal inspection.
Okay. The next question is asked by Mr. Yogesh. What is the frequency of whole lube oil changing for compressor system?
So as we discussed earlier, the lube oil change frequency is decided and defined by the OEM based on the application of compressor, based on the lubricant they are suggesting. So if it's a synthetic lube, possibly the change period would be higher. If it's a mineral fluid, it would be proportionally lesser. So based on that, you need to take a call on the frequency of change of lubricant.
Okay. The next question is from Anjeev George. It is mentioned that the compressor oil need wear resistant properties. Do you recommend anti-wear additives or extreme pressure additives or simply friction modifiers?
Yes, wear resistance properties is very important. It was a part of one of our slides as well. And hence the type of additives which are to be used for the particular lubricant application has to be suggested accordingly. Now, if the extreme pressure additives or the friction modifier additives which you are suggesting out here, if they are recommended by the OEM, then yes, one must go for them. Also, you must also check out with the lubricant company who is suggesting you for all these lubricants. Based on their recommendation, one must go for it. Mr. Yogesh, if you want to add something to it, please go ahead.
No, rightly said that apart from the recommendation, we need some expert solution or expert to deviate from recommendation.
Okay, great. So the next question is, most of the compressors are completely sealed. How can the varnish and sludge be generated? How can the particles enter the system?
But that's a very interesting question. So I would take it in a reverse order. How can the particles enter the system? So yes, you have already partially answered your question. The particles would enter the system from the service fluid. They would enter the system from the breathers of the tanks. Not just the particles, but also moisture, free water, gases. So all these are part of the entire spectrum of contamination. Now, as we know very well that sludge and varnish, they are the byproducts or the end terminal products of any oxidation activity or any kind of oil degradation phenomenon. So because of contamination, the oil would degrade. The oil would degrade to form byproducts like sludge and varnish. So even though the entire compressor system is sealed with no atmospheric interference, but you must understand that there is a in-service fluid of air which is actually going into the compressor and getting mixed up with the lubricant while the entire compression activity is happening.
Okay. So the next question is from John Robert. Can you suggest a lubrication circuit cleanup procedure or any standard procedure adopted for ammonia compressor system?
So the lubrication cleanup procedure is better known as a flushing activity. For this, various OEMs of compressors, they do provide a flushing manual. And why I'm saying the OEM manuals, because probably there would be certain special components which need to be handled carefully before you start the flushing operation. You must plan the entire circuit before you carry out the flushing, because there might be certain sensitive components which must be kept out of the flushing circuit. For example, if there are certain valves, there might be certain components which do not require flushing. So you can remove them by bypassing them using a loop arrangement. So flushing must be performed as per the OEM manual, because the PID drawings of the OEMs will suggest you the entire temporary flushing circuit. And flushing is highly recommended. As we discussed earlier, there would be cases of pre-commissioning as well as cases of breakdowns when flushing is required very much.
Okay. Next question is from Nityanand. What are the safety features of air compressors?
Safety features are normally alarms and tripping system for a compressor, like high discharge air temperature or high pressure. So there is a very long list of these features, and they come with equipment supply. So for different type of compressor, we have different type of protections. A general list cannot be told, but few points are common. What I mentioned: high temperature, high pressure, high vibration, low suction pressure, stalling of compressor or surge of compressor. Like that, there are few common points. And apart from these, manufacturers supplies the detailed IO list with alarms and the tripping values.
Okay, great. The next question is, please shed some light on lube oil oxidation in gas turbines and its consequences on turbo generators or compressors.
So regarding oxidation, I think the audience today is highly aware that lube oil is vulnerable to oxidation, especially in cases of gas turbines and compressors, because the temperatures are high, and temperature is a very important catalyst or condition due to which the oxidation of oil happens. Like there are multiple types of degradations for the oil. So temperature is a common phenomenon in all these type of degradations. And hence with gas turbines and compressors, the degradation is a highly vulnerable activity, and hence the varnish formation and sludge formation are also quite prone in case of gas turbines and compressors.
Okay, great. So the next question is from Lloyd Clement. How do you increase viscosity of lube oil? What causes low discharge pressure of instrument air compressor?
Viscosity of oil, one value which is given by the oil manufacturer, suppose 46 grade or 68 grade, that is at 40 degrees Celsius. Then we don't increase the viscosity of a oil by our own. It is not recommended. When we talk about the high viscosity or low viscosity, there is just change in the size of the polymer chain. If polymer chain is long one, viscosity will be high. If chains are fragmented or of smaller size, viscosity will be low. So definitely VI is available in the market that we call viscosity improver, and those are long chain polymers. Those are mixed with the oil to increase the viscosity. And while talking that why viscosity goes down, when the chain will break, viscosity will go down. The reason behind breakage of the chain may be high temperature or cross contamination, because in a 10,000 liter tank of lube oil or compressor oil, if you mix 1 liter of engine oil, the entire 10,000 oil will lose its property. Viscosity will come down and other chemical property will drastically come down to a very low level. And as you asked the second part of question, then compressor discharge volume is less. So discharge volume depends on the efficiency of your oil air separator, because if it is getting choked due to contamination, your outlet will be low. One point may be wear out of the rotating component, whether it is screw or a scroll or vane, anything. So this
I think we lost the network with Mr. Yogesh. So you can continue, Yumpa, with the next question.
Yes. So this is the last question of the evening. How much micron of suction filter and oil separator in case of screw compressor?
By the suction filter, if you mean to say the filter which is involved in the lube oil system. So if I'm right in understanding that, possibly it is based on the lube oil pump which is involved. So normally it is 150 micron for the case of screw compressors.
Okay. Okay.
A few more interesting questions I could see, and they are successive to my answers. So I would like to answer that before we end the webinar.
Please go ahead.
People have asked about the change of lubricant in case of compressors, and there are certain interesting questions with regards to purification. So here I would like to address that if you purify your lubricant of compressor on a regular basis, by regular, I mean to say if you install a purifier which is handling all the contaminant cases in case of the lubricant of the compressor, then yes, the life of the compressor lube will certainly increase. And this is not something which I'm sharing you out of theory, but it is a practical experience which has happened at multiple refineries and multiple fertilizer plants where we have been working. So if you purify your compressor lubes on a regular basis with the correct method, then yes, the life of compressor lubes will increase. And I'm sure my lubricant friends who have joined us would not be very happy with this statement. But yes, to add to the benefit of the depleting resource of our Mother Earth, the lube will certainly have a better life if you can purify the lubricant while it is in service.
Okay, great. The questions which are unanswered, our experts will definitely answer them and will share FAQ document with you all in your registered mail ID. And we will also post it on our social media channels. Don't forget to take the survey after this webinar because your feedback matter to us. And we shall see you in the next webinar. Don't forget to register for it. Thank you, Mr. Anshuman and Mr. Yogesh, for such an informative session, and we shall see you next time. Thank you.